Hi again. We're going to talk about now this aggregation. We created aggregate plan, and now that's for the overall demand. Now, what we need to do, we need to go down to each product in specific and talk about each product and plan for that particular product. So we start with the aggregate plan and we send it down to this aggregation and then to create something called a master schedule. The master schedule, it will help you to find out for a specific item. So this aggregation, it's basically breaking down the aggregate plan into specific product requirements in order to determine labor requirement, skills, size of work, force, etc. The result of the disaggregation, it's the master schedule. The master schedule, it's a shorter period, 6 to 8 weeks, and it is the result of the disaggregation of the aggregate plan. It shows the quantity and timing of the specific item for the schedule horizon. Master schedule shows the planned output for individual products rather than the entire group of products, along with the timing of production. The total of aggregate and disaggregate units are equal. So these are one important rule when we create the aggregate plan. When we send it to the master schedule, we have to match that demand. Let's take a look into this. This is what I mean by you have to match the demand. So in January, we have a plan of output to be 200. Now, once we go to this aggregate and we do the master schedule, we're doing, so this is for a product of lawnmower. We have on January, we're selling 100 of the push type, self-propel 75, riding would be 25. The total of them should match the aggregate plan of 200. So same thing here for February, we have 300 total demand. Now we break that down into a master schedule for each type of these products. We have 100, 150, and 50. Total would be 300, the same thing for March. So let's take a look into the input and the output of the master schedule. As an input, you'll start with the beginning inventory. You will take a look into the forecast. You will take a look into the customer orders, the actual orders. As an output, you will look into the output inventory. You will be able to do the inventory management or projected inventory. And then also what you will do, it's creating the schedule, the master production schedule as an output, and uncommitted inventory also considered, or what we call it, the promise available to promise. All right, master schedule. Master scheduling is one of the primary output of the master scheduling process. Once a tentative MPS, the master production schedule, has been developed, it must be validated. We use rough cut capacity planning, which is a tool that we use to validate the process. What we need to do, we need approximate balancing of capacity and demand to test the feasibility of a master schedule. So again, we're going to look into balancing the capacity and the demand. Next, we need to look into this RCCP will involve in checking the capacity of production, warehouse, facilities, labor, and vendor to ensure no gross deficiencies exist that will render the MPS unworkable. All right, let's take a look into here. What does the MPS look like? We have the lot size, starting with the lot size, we could make 80 units. We have inventory on hand, 80 units. Lot size is 100. Here's what would demand for this particular product. We have 60 forecasted. We forecast 60 units every period for 6 periods. Projected inventory available would be 80. Start with the 80. Now, take a look into the forecast. We have forecasted 60 units for period 1. We have enough inventory to satisfy the demand. So we send 60 for the customer, and that will leave you with 20 units available on hand For the next period, period 2, we have a demand of 60. We don't have enough inventory to satisfy the demand. So what we need to do, we need to issue an MPS asking the workers to do a patch of production. So we have a 100 plus the 20, so we have 120 available. We send 60 of them to the customer. That would leave you with a 60 projected available in the inventory. Now for period 3, we have a 60 units available, 60 units forecast needed, and we have 60 available as well. So that would leave you with a 0 inventory, available inventory. Now for period 4, we forecasted to be 60 as a demand. We don't have that 60. So what we have to do, we have to issue an MPS of 100 units. We send the 60 to the customer. That would leave you with 40, which is not enough to satisfy the demand for period 5. So you have to issue an MPS of 100. Total production or units we have is 140. Take away 60, send it to the customer. That will leave you with 80 units available by the end of period 5. And then on period 6, we need 60 to send it to the customer, and that would leave you with 200 units available as inventory. All right, let's take a look into another format of it. So now we're adding into the customer order. So the first example was given to you based on the forecast. Now we're dealing with the customer orders, the actual orders rather than forecasting. And so let's take a look here. We have in hand inventory of 64. 64 on the first period, projecting on hand inventory would be 64. Take away 33, send it to the customer. That would be 64 minus 33. That would leave you with 31 available on hand. 31. Now what we need to do is we need to look into the higher number. Which one is the higher? So the 30 is the higher. So we send the 30 to the customer. That will leave you with 1 unit available. The 1 unit is not enough to satisfy the demand of 30 or 10. So we could go with a higher number, 30 here. So we have to issue an MPS of 70. Looks like this is the 70 is the lot size. So now we have a 71 available. Send the 31 to the customer, or plan to sending a 30 to the customer. That will leave you with 41. 41 is enough to satisfy the demand for period 4 of 30. So 41 minus 30, that would leave you with 11. 11 is not enough to satisfy the demand, so we have to issue an MPS. So we have about 81 available. You are expecting to send 40 to the customer. That would leave you with 41. That is enough to satisfy the demand for period 6. So you send 40 to the customer, or expect to send 40 to the customer. That will leave you with 1. 1 is not enough to satisfy the demand for the next period. So you issue an MPS of 70. 71, take away 40. That would leave you with 31. 31 is not enough to satisfy the demand for period 8. You have to issue an MPS of 70. Total, we have 101. Send 40, or expect to sell 40. That will leave you with a 61 of on hand. So this is where we mix the forecast with the actual order. So if we really have an actual order, we go with the actual orders. But however, if the forecast is higher, we go with the forecast. So for example, here, forecast is 30, customer order 33. So we go with a 33. In here, between 30 and 20, we go with the 30. So this is just to make sure that you have enough to satisfy the demand. Again, we go with a higher number in order to meet the need. Exactly, this is what happened in period 1. We expected to sell 30, but we have actually 33, so we have to go with a 33 as to satisfy the customer. There's something called available to promise, or delivery promises. When we create the MPS plan, will help you to find out how many units you will have. So sometimes when you have an extra units, you could commit that to the customer. Say, I could promise you to send you whatever you want. So in order to make the delivery promises, these are basically coming through the sales will deliver these promises. We need to look into the forecast, projected available balance, and then we will do available to promise calculation, which is MPS values for a given time period left after actual customer demand are subtracted. I'll share with you an example here on how to calculate the available to promise. So let's take a look into this example where we have a 100 units as an inventory on hand. So for period one, we have a demand of 80. 80 is, we have enough to satisfy the demand. So we have a 20 units extra. So this where you could do it as available to promise. You could promise it to a customer. Now for the next period, we have a demand of 10. We don't have any enough, so we have to issue an MPS. An MPS will be enough to satisfy the demand, and that would leave you with 90 available. Now, for the available to promise, we take a look into the MPS. Okay, let's take a look into the MPS. Whenever there is an MPS, there should be an available to promise. So we have 100 here. Take away from the 100 these 20, that will give you 80 units available to promise. Same thing here. We have a 100 MPS. So available to promise would be 100 minus 30. That will give you 70 units available to promise. So what we need to do, we look into the MPS. Whenever there is an MPS, there should be an available to promise. So we consider the demand, all the demand before the next MPS, and we subtract it from the MPS to find out what would be the available to promise. All right, now another topic that we need to talk about it is the time fence. Sometimes it's hard to meet the demand because we are closer to the delivery date. So once the production gets closer to the delivery time, the cost of making changes in the plan will increase, and the company flexibility decrease because we're getting closer to the deadline and we can't do anything. Changes to production schedule can result in the following: increased cost because of cost increase due to rerouting, rescheduling, extra setup, expediting, build up for work in progress inventory, or could be decreased customer service. Customer would not be happy for that. Change in a quantity of delivery can disrupt the schedule of other orders. So we need to consider the other orders, and maybe the customer would not be happy if they did not receive what they want. Reduced credibility. This is where you're going to lose the reputation of your company because you're not credible. To help in the decision making, companies, what they do, establish zones divided by time fences. So the first time fence would be the frozen zone. The frozen zone, basically, it's hard to change. Capacity and material are committed to specific orders. Since changes would result in excessive cost, reduced manufacturing efficiency, and poor customer satisfaction. The only people who could make that decision is senior management. If they want to do it, they will have to commit to that. So it is very difficult to make these changes due to the cost. Then the next zone would be the slushy zone, which is capacity and material are committed to a less extent. This is an area for trade-offs that must be negotiated between marketing and manufacturing. In this zone, material have been ordered and capacity established. These are also difficult to change. Liquid zone, which you could do any change to the MPS as long as within the limits set by the production. Here's a graph that will help you to look into these three zones: the frozen zone, the slushy, and the liquid. So the closer you are to the deadline, the harder to change, and way far from the deadline would help you to make these changes. Next time, what I want to do, I will be talking about projected available balance equations, where you will within the time fence. Now, if we have a time fence, we need to consider how we can calculate the projected available balance. The projected available balance would be equal to the prior period of the projected available balance plus the MPS minus the customer orders. However, if we are outside of the demand time fence, we will have to go with the greater of the customer order of forecast. Let's take a look into this example here that will help you to understand that. We have a time fence at the end of week 3. At the end of week 3, so we have customer orders 80. Demand is 75. We have projected available balance of 50. 50 is not enough to, it's not enough to satisfy the demand. We have to go and issue MPS. So we have 100 units plus the 50, 150. 150 minus 80 to go with a larger number. So that will leave you with the 70 projected available balance. Now moving into the second period, we have a 70, which is enough to satisfy the demand. 70, 50, or 45. So this way, since we are already in the demand fence of week 3, we're going to go with the customer orders. Now that will leave you with 25. So 70 minus 45, that will give you 25. Now for the third period, we don't have enough to satisfy the demand. So we have to issue an MPS of 100. So we have a total of 145. 145. Now let's send to the customer which one we go. We go with 40 here. So 145 minus 140, 125. 125 minus 40 would be equal to 85. So 85 is enough to satisfy the demand. Now we are done with the 3-week period defense. Now we have to go with the higher. So we have projected available 85. Which one is higher? 50. So 85 minus 50, that would be 35. 35 is not enough to satisfy the demand. So we have to issue an MPS. 135 minus, go which one? Go with the higher 135 minus 70. That will give you 65 available. And now this would be enough to satisfy the demand. 65 minus 20, we go with the higher. That would leave you with a 45 units available in your inventory. Now for the available to promise, whenever there's an MPS, we have to do an available to promise. As you see, we have period 1, period 3, and period 5. So this is where you want to look into the available to promise. So this would be equal to what? We have to do the 120, 170. What is the orders here? We have the orders is for this before the next MPS would be this one here. So we have available 150 minus the 125. That will give you 25 units extra that you can promise customers to take. Now for the next available to promise would be here on week 3. So we need to go with what we have so far. We have 125, and we will send how many of these we have to send? 125, send 90 to the customer. 125 minus 90, that would be 35. Now for the last available promise here would be, we have available 135, send 50. What we have to send? We have to send 55 minus 100. 100 minus 55, that will give you 45 available to promise. 45 available. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's the end of it. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will try to make another example on the MPS available promise and predicted available balance, so you could better understand this question. I'll see you in another video on the MPS. Thank you.